In humanity's attempt to conquer death, 4 scientists successfully discover a way to bring a dead animal back to life. But a sudden accident has forced the team's hand to apply their research onto a human subject without a care for the consequences. And those consequences came back to haunt them in the most terrifying way possible. Zoe leads Eva through St. Paternus University in California to get her to document their research. Frank, the team's leader, explains the process in great detail. The Lazarus serum was developed by Zoe by bonding B-cell tumors that speeds up nerve fiber regrowth. Then Nico created the pulse array that outputs electrical charges that activates the serum. All this will be injected into the subject's brain, where different areas will be jump-started at regular intervals. Frank's goal is simple: to be able to help doctors safely bring someone back to life by extending the resuscitation duration. Eva continues her documentary and playfully gets to know Clay and Nico. Since she already knows too much, Frank and Zoe decide to let Eva document their next trial. That night, Zoe experiences her recurring nightmares again. She's alone in a hallway, then it starts to burn. People beyond the door reach out to her with burned hands. The next day, the whole team discuss their next steps. They all have this issue where cells degrade prematurely and falls apart. Everyone pitched in ideas, but it was Clay's suggestion that gets nominated for trial. They all excitedly prepare the test subject, which is a dog that was put down due to cataract blindness. Frank applies the serum and Zoe turns the switch, but the dog is still unresponsive. The whole team is obviously disappointed, but Eva suddenly exclaims that she just saw the dog move. Frank tries to explain that it's just muscle spasms and there are still no signs of life, but Eva was so sure she saw it. Nico tries to have a closer look and suggests another idea when the dog suddenly jumped to life. It started thrashing around confused before the team finally calmed it down. Zoe immediately notices that the dog's cataracts are gone. Since they still don't know much about what just happened, Frank decided to name the dog Rocky and take it home with him. Frank and Zoe are in a relationship and live together. Rocky, however, doesn't appear to have any appetite at all. Zoe wonders if they've done the right thing if pulling Rocky out from dog heaven, but Frank assures her that they are. But while Zoe is asleep, Rocky creepily stood on top of her and just stared. The next day, Rocky still looked bored. Eva wondered if Rocky ever remembers dying and seeing the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. This is when Frank explains that the light is the result of our pineal gland producing large amounts of DMT and flooding our brain and body with it just before we die. Basically, this allows us to undergo a psychedelic drug-induced trip, causing us to hallucinate things like light at the end of a tunnel or religious visions. But Zoe doesn't totally agree with Frank. She thinks that the soul or consciousness is another form of energy that's converted, and the DMT is there to open a door and help the soul go to their final destination. The team does an MRI scan on Rocky, and his brain scans surprise them all. The amount of brain activity is significantly higher than normal, and the Lazarus serum is still active and creating new neural pathways in the dog's brain. The Lazarus serum should have disappeared a couple of hours after Rocky was revived. Sometime later, Clay is looking after Rocky when he's interrupted by a commotion. The pantry is a mess and Rocky is gone. Clay is getting anxious real quick when Rocky suddenly appears and freaks him out. He tells everyone this a short time later, where Eva adds that Rocky can't possibly get this bag of chips from the top shelf. The next day, Frank is pulled into a meeting with the university president about their experiment. Apparently, they're not supposed to be bringing the dead back to life, since their research was originally about helping coma patients slow their brain decay. Frank defends the project and insists that a lot of scientific breakthroughs happen by accident, so they changed their project direction. But the president still shut Frank's research down due to this violation, which got him suspicious on how the university knew what they were doing in the first place, since they kept it a secret. Frank suspects the president and the university has been bribed by someone powerful. Out of the blue, a group of corporate people started to aggressively seize and confiscate everything related to the Lazarus project. They explain to a confused Zoe that all their research is now the property of Krylonis Pharmaceutical. But Zoe tells them that Werner Goss Biotechnical funds their project. The corporate drone quickly reply that 2 hours ago, Krylonis bought Werner Goss. Another one added that since Frank signed an agreement includes that any violation in the contract will grant Krylonus full ownership of their research and intellectual property. Zoe is furious and suspects Eva for leaking their project to Krylonus, but Frank thinks something else tipped them off. Frank adds that Krylonus did all those to get them out of the picture as the true inventors of the Lazarus serum. The whole team gets depressed after hearing this since they have spent 4 years of their lives working on this project. This is when Frank proposes that they duplicate the experiment and show the world the truth that they invented it. As luck would have it, Zoe kept a fair amount of the serum just in case, and Eva has another keycard. They only have 12 hours left before their lab gets completely cleaned out the next day, so they begin that very night. Eva gets past the guard and lets everyone in. As they all prepare, Nico keeps a close watch on the guard and Clay prepares another dog for the experiment. Zoe administers the serum, and while Eva is busy recording everything, Frank invites Zoe to flick the switch, and that's where everything went downhill. A sudden power outage has badly electrocuted Zoe and she's unresponsive. Frank and the rest of the team desperately try to revive Zoe, but they're all too late, she's gone. As Frank solemnly stares at Zoe, he realized then and there that the answer was right in front of him. He carries Zoe on the medical table when the others figure out what Frank is up to. Frank plans to use the Lazarus serum on Zoe, but the rest of the team strongly advise against it since they're still miles away from human trials. But Frank doesn't have much of a choice, so his entire team just to go along with his plan. The whole team worked together in preparing Zoe for the very first human Lazarus trial. The serum is applied and Eva activates the switch, but Zoe is still unresponsive. Frank tries again but is still unsuccessful. And when they're just about to try a third time, Nico noticed the guard is missing and is actually heading to check the lab. They hurriedly pack up, hide, and turn the lights off. The guard paces around the lab floor for a few tense moments while the whole team hold their breath. He goes away eventually, and Frank gets the shock of his life when he sees Zoe sitting up on the table. They briefly examine her and she appears fine, if only a little disoriented. Zoe immediately read the room and realized that she died and was brought back to life. After the guard returns back to his post, the entire team relax. They run an MRI scan on Zoe and Nico is surprised to see that her entire brain activity uses 100%. He tells Eva that typically, humans can only use 10% of their brain at any given time. Zoe is back, but she realized that she developed mysterious powers. Right off the bat, she can finish Frank's sentences, which freaked him out a little. She can move small objects and can even listen in and read people's thoughts from a distance. Zoe can hear what the team really thinks about her. They think they all made a mistake and regret bringing her back from the dead. She goes to the bathroom to calm herself, but instead discovers a darker side to her persona. Even Rocky feels threatened by it, so Zoe ends the dog. Zoe approaches Frank shortly after to tell him what she experienced. She tells him that when she still wasn't revived, she was reliving her nightmare for years. Frank tells her then that she's only been out for a couple of hours and that it's the DMT that's making her hallucinate. But Zoe insists that it was hell and that you're forced to relive the worst moment of your life in a loop over and over again. To help Zoe calm down, Frank gives her some antidepressants. Eva checks up on Zoe while she's fast asleep. However, Eva gets transported into Zoe's nightmare. She curiously walks towards the hallway where she finds people behind a door in a burning room, trying to get out. As she turns around, Eva finds a little girl and gets sent to a white room with a mysterious figure. Eva closes in slowly, but the figure grabs her arm and she wakes up screaming. The team helps her up and tells everybody what she saw. Nico finds the burn scars on her arm, so Frank tells the team that it was Zoe's recurring nightmare. That back when she was still a little girl, her apartment caught fire and her neighbors got trapped. This alarms the whole team since there's no way Eva could have known about Zoe's nightmare. Eva speculates that Zoe's soul could still be trapped in the nightmare since the DMT couldn't fully open the door to let her soul through. Clay patches up Eva and theorizes that Zoe is undergoing rapid evolution and the Lazarus serum is responsible. A short while later, Nico discovered something troublesome. Apparently, they have been hacked a few months ago by Krylonus and have access to their data, including the video feeds. Frank realizes this must be how they learned about their research, and Krylonus must also know what they're doing right now, so he quickly orders everyone to pack up and leave quickly. Meanwhile, Zoe is still struggling with her inner demons, but in the end it has completely taken over. Nico is the first on Zoe's list. She tells him that he's the only one she can trust, but Nico pushed her back, telling her that he can help her but he needs more time. This angered Zoe, so she telekinetically throws Nico in a cabinet and slowly crushed him to death. A short time later, they find Zoe on a couch just pretending everything is fine. The pressure got into Clay, so he tries to call security, but Zoe manages to cut the power. Frank thinks that it was only the lab emergency system activating when there is any danger of a contaminant escaping. Frank and Clay tried different routes of escape to no avail. Eva confronts Zoe about the strange things happening and accuses her of Nico's disappearance. Clay also joined in, angrily demanding to know what Zoe did to Nico. Zoe just calmly moved the pen back in Clay's throat, choking him. Frank and Eva both scramble to save Clay while Zoe just sits there enjoying the moment. They both tried to save him, but they were both too late. Frank and Eva slowly face Zoe as she quietly stares at them, then the lights went off. Zoe briefly shows them her power before everything went dark again. A moment later, Frank recovers and helps Eva up. He looks around for anything that can be used as a weapon, and they both look for Zoe. They look around in the morgue and the lights shut off again. When it came back on, all the drawers are open. One of the corpses suddenly sits up and they get the hell out of there. Frank tells Eva his plan. He's going to inject Zoe with a full dose of a chemical used to put down lab animals, and he also shows Eva how to do it. After telling Eva to hide, Frank sets off to look for Zoe. He finds her creepily standing by herself, weeping on the hallway. Frank slowly moves in, but Zoe quickly catch up on what he's planning to do. But that doesn't stop him from trying to placate Zoe, as he tries to promise and help and assure her that he still loves her. Zoe looks for proof as she reads Frank's thoughts. Frank's thoughts all say the same thing, that he needs to use the needle and put Zoe down for good, so Zoe slowly crushes his head in revenge. Now only Eva remains. Zoe injects more serum in her brain while Eva prepares more syringes. Eva slowly navigates the lab searching for Zoe. But she didn't have to go too far, as Zoe attacks her and sends her back to her hellish nightmare. Eva finds the little girl again, who turns out to be young Zoe, and she learns that Zoe was the one who started the fire. As the fire starts burning everything around them, the possessed Zoe enters. Eva begs younger Zoe to open the door so Zoe's soul can finally break the loop. Eva manages to poison Zoe twice for good measure. And just when Eva thought it was all over, she was snapped back to reality. And this is the end of our story. Thank you for reaching this far, and leave us a like and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you on the next one.